Hello, it's me again with yet another book review. Now, a few weeks ago, I conducted a poll on Twitter to choose, based on the votes, which of the books that I had read in January was going to be reviewed in my next video book review. And the winner was Terry Pratchett's The Truth. So let's get into it. So, first of all, for those of you who might not have heard of Terry Pratchett and his novels, a very brief introduction. Terry Pratchett was a British writer. Unfortunately, he died a couple of, I think it was 3 years or so ago. Fantasy writer mostly. And he was the author of a series of 50 something novels, which are set in a fantasy world called the Discworld, which is generally used as, especially in the first novels, as, like a parody setting for making fun of mostly fictional science, some fantasy stereotypes and tropes and characters. Terry Pratchett has a very peculiar style, which is very witty, full of adventure and action, but also full of word plays, puns. And these novels, as I said, the fantasy setting in which they take place is a little bit like the stereotypical fantasy worlds that you might encounter. It's a disc, that's why it's called the Discworld, which is a flat space over four giant elephants who themselves stand on the top of a giant space faring turtle, the great Atween. And it's a world with magicians and with dwarves and with trolls and and witches and the other conventional tropes of fantasy, but generally they're given a twist, a very comic and parodic twist. There were about 50 something novels. The one we're talking about today, The Truth, is like the 25th. It was published in the year 2000. So, one thing to say about Terry Pratchett is that he was knighted for services to literature, and he made the quip that he suspected he was being knighted for having made no contributions to literature. That was his service to it. So he was a popular writer, not fancy high modernist, dark type of slightly pedantic type of novelist. No, he's pretty straightforward. Anybody can enjoy his novels straightforwardly. If you have read some fantasy for the most part, you will enjoy it probably a little bit more. But as I said, he evolved. His first novels, the characters were completely flat and in joking. After, like, I don't know, 10, 15 novels, his characters started becoming more complex. Like the Discworld started to develop as an intertextual tapestry, that is to say, a series of different stories and of different characters, all set in the Discworld, but with very distinct parallel but separated plot lines and stories. Like when people start reading Discworld's novels, sometimes they are given guides on which novels to read and in which order if you like that type of novel. So, for example, he has novels where the witches of Lancre are the protagonists. So, if you enjoy those novels, you should probably read the Lancre witches novels in succession. Other cycles that he has in the Discworld are the wizards. Those are generally first novels. The death novels, where death appears, and his granddaughter Susan Stohilit, and the City Watch novels, which have generally this city cop parody type element included. And there are the technological development novels. Now, most of the action in the Discworld takes place in its biggest city, Ankh-Morpork, which again is a pastiche of fantasy cities, but also of historical cities like, I don't know, 16th century London, 17th, 18th century Tallinn, maybe a little bit of New York and Seattle. I think the author has mentioned are also included in it. So it's this massive world sized cosmopolis, which is, not a beautiful or idealized place. It's just a big city with lots of merchandise and crime, but also, lots of innovation, lots of technological intellectual advances. So most of the novels are set in Ankh-Morpork, and The Truth, the novel we're talking about today, is also set there. It's part of the series of technological innovation novels. So in 4, 5, 6 Discworld novels, you get the trope that a technological advance, which is pretty typical in our world, it can be cinema, it can be mail service, it can be, as in this case, the development of newspapers and movable type press. So in these novels, this technology gets discovered in the Discworld, and the novel explores what are the consequences, what are the effects of this technology in this magic fantasy type of setting. So the main plot of this novel is this one. So basically, the dwarves that are the biggest minority living in Ankh-Morpork have invented a movable type press, and what happens as a consequence? Well, they get involved with William de Worde, who is a member of an important family who writes newsletters for foreign dignitaries. And well, he gets involved with the dwarves, and they start printing the Discworld's first newspaper. And a parallel strand that goes on with the different misadventures at creating this newspaper and developing it is a story of charges of embezzlement and attempted murder levied against the ruler of the city, Lord Vetinari. And the newspaper, in collaboration with the City Watch, tries to solve the mystery, the truth, as the title of the novel is called, that lies behind these accusations. So this is not a Watch novel, but the City Watch makes a significant appearance. And well, in all of Pratchett's novels, whatever whatever branch they belong, whether they be wizard novels or witch novels or wizard novels, they generally include some of the other characters from the other branches making cameo appearances. Anyway, so we get the creation of this first Discworld newspaper, the Ankh-Morpork Times. We get very interesting characters enrolled for collaborating in the newspaper beyond William de Worde, like Sacharissa Cripslock, who becomes his second in command, or the vampire Otto, who has made a continent and a vow not to drink blood, and who takes photographs, even though the light from the flashes generally kills him, but he's able to be resurrected again. Now, leading the conspiracy that is trying to depose the patrician is a group of anonymous but powerful figures, and they employ in their hire two mercenaries, Mr. Pin and Mr. Tulip. Mr. Pin is like the brain, and Mr. Tulip is the brawn. And they are, in many ways, and there are explicit references to that, they're evocative of Vincent Vega and Jules from Pulp Fiction, which is a reference that I enjoyed a lot finding in this novel. You know, when I was a high school student, that movie was, a very big thing for us, and it was a cultural icon of the group of friends I was with. So anyway, the novel shows you how these people are participating in that plot of getting the patrician deposed, and are being hired by some very powerful aristocrats from Ankh-Morpork. And, well, I think that's all I can say without giving away any of the plot details. So, what can we say about the novel? It's a pretty typical Terry Pratchett novel. If you have read any Pratchett novel and you liked it, I would recommend giving it a take. Probably wouldn't be the best one to start if you haven't read Pratchett before. I would begin with some of the earlier novels that introduce, at the very least, the City Watch and then the city of Ankh-Morpork. And the topic it develops, it's Pratchett is always very engaging, and in this story you've got a combination of, in the words of Infinity Plus, an excellently plotted tale of mystery and murder, and a hilarious take on the newspaper business. So, quite an entertaining novel. You will breeze through it, I suspect, and Pratchett is, very, very, very pleasant to write. And as I said, Pratchett is not like a very deep philosophical writer. He's a writer of bestsellers. But having said this, the way he touches or develops on some topics, like in this case, the influence of the press on the appearance of the press and the consequences it has and the effects it has on society, on a growing society, they are non-trivial aspects and ideas about this topic that he develops in his novel while still making it pretty amusing. So I think that's all I can say about the novel. I would recommend it to anybody, and it's very entertaining and a light read, and you will finish with it quite quickly. So if you're in need of a light read, and especially if you are acquainted with Pratchett, this is as good as any novel, as any other to read.